Okay, so I wanted to create a video in case you feel like you're stuck in maybe some negative emotions and you're working towards, maybe your dream job or maybe your dream business or just any place that feels out of reach because of how you're currently feeling. Because I recently went through it, finally saw myself out on the other side. So I just wanted to create a video about it. So thought this would help you hopefully, and just let you know that one, I can relate, and two, how you can get through it. So if you are new here, my name is Presh. I'm a double certified life coach and life purpose coach, and I primarily help highly sensitive people, empaths, and just heart-centered humans in general. I help them find a sense of inner peace, but mostly find their soul path. So whether that is starting a soul-aligned business or just a soul-aligned life path, that's what I am all about. And that's why I'm creating this video, because believe it or not, a lot of those negative emotions actually come up even when you're on the right path. So just feel reassured, even if you're on the right path, a lot of negative emotions can come up. So something we're actually going to use today is called the Emotional Guidance Scale by Abraham Hicks. And so I have this image here. I'm still getting used to Ecamm, by the way. But here is that emotional guidance scale. And this is so helpful when you are stuck in those negative emotions to kind of use as a guidance scale, as it's called, to kind of either accept where you're at or try to move through it. So I haven't posted a video completely about what I had gone through in 2024. I'll probably create another video to dive deeper into that, but because I want to help you if you are stuck in the middle of everything right now, I'll keep it brief in terms of what I had experienced. So essentially I made some life changes and I had left my full-time job to pursue my life coaching business full-time. And I knew that was the right thing to do. It felt super aligned and things were great for a while. But then I had reached a point where I actually had to, get a job to bring in some additional income in the meantime. And I was used to being in the upward spiral, right? All those positive emotions. And it did bring me to the place of kind of a downward spiral because it was a lot of change. That wasn't the only change I had gone through. I had a lot of other things going on. I was grieving a pet that just passed away. I was grieving a bunch of different things. And so it felt like everything was crumbling at once, even though I was on the right path of pursuing my purpose. So just again, know if you are pursuing something and it feels like everything's going wrong, sometimes, that's just the way it is, and it doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path. I just want to reassure you again there with that. So essentially, as a life purpose coach and a double certified life coach, we have a lot of tools on mindset, right? So maybe you might be thinking that right now, like, I just need to fix my mindset. So hopefully the scale will help you. It's not always necessarily a mindset thing. We have as humans, we have so many different things going on at once, right? There's mind, body, spirit, soul, all those things working in synchronicity at the same time. And so with the scale of emotions, I just want to point out a few things. So if you're not familiar with the scale at all, essentially, joy, empowerment, love, freedom, all of those emotions are at the very kind of top of the scale. And no emotion is better than another emotion. I just want to make that clear. But it's easier, obviously, to move through life with some of these emotions more than others, and it can be difficult to work through these negative emotions. And I typically, you might be able to relate to this, but I typically am a very positive person. And so when all of this stuff was going on, I was not used to dealing with the feeling of anger or, what are some of these other ones, like worry or doubt. And of course, I would worry over here on the upward spiral, but it would be like briefly, and then I'd go back to the upward. just because I did the mindset work of getting to that place of being able to maintain this for a long time. But sometimes we obviously go through life circumstances that might bring us here. And the goal is to be able to snap back to this, as quickly as possible if we're ready, so that we can get to a better place, because obviously we attract what we are. And so if we're stuck in a downward spiral, it can be difficult to get out of this and get to this to attract what we want, right? Like law of attraction. However, if you are a person that worries, but you can still, tap into love and tap into joy and all of those emotions, you're still going to be able to attract those things. So it's okay to feel these emotions, but the goal is to be able to also hold these emotions at the same time, if that makes sense. So for myself, when I was stuck in the anger and the discouragement and all of those feelings, I wanted to snap back to these, because that essentially, and I'm using my cursor here, but I don't even know if you could see that. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But the goal I was used to was snapping back to the upward spiral, right? So if I were angry, I would be able to use my tools, my mindset tools or my somatic tools to get back to the upward spiral. However, I was really stuck here for a long time. And what finally got me out, and what might help you, is acknowledging where you're at, right? If you're angry, if you are discouraged, really giving yourself permission to feel that, because again, we're human and stuff happens in life. We go through different things. And so if you're feeling, angry because maybe you got laid off, or maybe you did leave your job and you were hoping for a better outcome and you ended up stuck in a worse situation than you had anticipated. And so you're stuck in that downward spiral. Just acknowledge where you're at. And again, sometimes it's not easy to shift from the downward spiral to the upward spiral, but if you just sit in where you're at and at least try to be neutral, neutrality is a great place to be. So I actually don't really see, I guess neutrality on this scale would probably be, sorry, I don't even know where to put my, okay. That would probably be more of like boredom would be neutrality. And then you can see contentment is down here. So this is the downward spiral. And then, you can work your way up here. And then that's essentially the bottom of the upward spiral. Again, I'm new to this eCam thing, so I'm like trying to put my finger in the right place to show you on the chart here. So when you get to the top of the downward spiral, you're actually at the bottom of the upward spiral, which is a great place to be. So that is a neutral place. And we actually use this in coaching as well. But being able to be neutral gets you from that negative place to eventually the more positive place that you want to be. You want to feel positive, right? So acknowledging where you're at and accepting that is really important. Not feeling pressured to be in a state that you are not currently in, right? Then the reframing starts to come in. Okay. And of course, this is going to be very different depending on what you're experiencing. If you're experiencing grief from someone passing, a loved one passing, you might be in that place for a while, and that's okay. It's all about when you feel ready, right? When you feel ready to move to a more neutral place or to the other emotions, that's when you can start making the changes. But you never should force yourself when you're not ready to move into the upward spiral. So this is when the reframing starts to come in. So for me personally, I had picked up that other job after, needing additional income, running my business full time. And there were a lot of challenges with learning a new role. I was very used to my previous career. I was an expert in what I did. And so learning a new skill can be really, really difficult. And so what I had kept telling myself, I kept reframing, this is going to make me a better person and this is going to make me a better coach, right? My schedule also changed, and so it was really difficult. I was working later into the evening and starting my day later on. I'm a morning person, and that really put a lot of weight on me as well, probably literally too, because I was eating later into the night. And so I just did not feel in sync like I used to be. And, as a HSP or empath, we're very in tune with our bodies, and we know like what our schedule should be. And not that we can't survive outside of that schedule, but we know what schedule we need in order to thrive. And so I definitely was not thriving. I was in survival mode, which is kind of what you can call the downward spiral. Downward spiral could be that survival mode, where upward spiral could be the thriving mode. And so I just kept reminding myself how it was going to make me better. And instead of resisting, this is another concept that will really help you learning when to surrender and when to resist. And when you're in constant state of resistance of your current circumstances, it's actually making it worse, right? If you're fighting a current, it's going to take all of your energy, versus working with it and in the flow, it's easier to get out of, right? Also, they say that with quicksand as well, right? When you struggle and you're like fighting it, it's more difficult, but when you kind of like try to work with it, you're able to get out. So again, accepting those emotions, really feeling those, figuring out how your current circumstances could actually get you to your goal is a really helpful place to be. Again, this is going to vary depending on what you're experiencing. And then I also mixed it with a lot of different practices. So, I meditate, but breathwork was a major, major one for me, because meditation's really good for me to be proactive personally. And I think for a lot of people, it's good for being proactive and to kind of clear your mind and things like that. But breathwork I have found really helpful when I am currently in a situation that I need to kind of change my energy, shift my mindset. You can do that on paper. You can shift your mindset on paper and work through certain things. But this is like a full body reset type of thing. And so immediately, actually, when I started doing that breath work, it changed my mood, it changed my energy, and I was able to move into that upward spiral. And then my whole life situation completely changed. So whenever you can, again, just to kind of recap, getting from that place of being in the downward spiral all the way at the bottom, okay? There's fear, grief, depression, powerlessness, feeling like a victim because of your circumstances. Again, it's going to depend what you're going through. But just figuring out how you can get it to a more neutral place so that you can shift your energy, so that you can focus on thriving, essentially. Because when you are stuck in those negative emotions, it's going to be more difficult to get out of that situation, unfortunately. And it kind of just feeds itself. It's like just the negativity, the momentum just grows and grows and grows until it like consumes you, and it's difficult to get out of. I remember, again, I said I'm usually a very positive person, but my shadow trait as in human design, as a projector and with my gene keys, is bitterness. And I'm never a bitter person. I'm telling you, in 2024, it was the worst, absolute worst feeling. And the worst part is I'm not good at hiding my emotions. So I know it kind of emulated out of me, and I hated that so much because that is not the person I am. So you might not feel like yourself if you're used to being more in the light, positive, upward spiral emotions, and you're stuck over here. And I know it's not a good feeling at all, but just know like all humans do, get to that place some point in time. We're in the downward spiral, and it's actually, I hate to say it, but sometimes it's a good thing so that we can heal certain things. Something that I find kind of ironic and funny is that, especially as a life coach, we're typically on social media and we look really positive, right? Like we feel the need to also be, because we're trying to help other people. I myself have actually been doing the deep work of healing. And so I put a lot of stuff out there on social media, a lot of sharing me going through more healing. And at the beginning, when I first was a life coach and posting on social media, you can see how positive I was all of the time, because that's what I was showing all the time. And then, it's important to dive into, they call it the shadow work, because it is the unhealed parts of you. Shadow work is all of that unhealed stuff that's deep in our subconscious brain, all of the programming, all of the things that we don't typically look at, but it's there, and it's actually creating that glass ceiling and preventing us from progressing. It's preventing us from moving forward and reaching our goals. And so by actually diving deep into the shadow work and the unhealed versions of ourselves and all of the unhealed stuff, we can actually propel ourselves forward. But it is difficult because we're diving into the things that we don't want to dive into, essentially. And so I know on my social media, when I talk about social media, primarily Instagram page, you can actually see on my Instagram page, you can see when I was going through and actually diving in and doing that healing work, because it's not as positive as when I first started. But toxic positivity is not good. You need to acknowledge where you're at, and then also diving deep into those unhealed parts of yourself is really going to be important. It's actually going to propel you forward in the long run. So if you are just really struggling right now, just do what you can to heal what you're currently going through. Take a deep look at it. So for example, I know I was really resistant in learning some of the new skills at this new job that I had picked up when I realized I needed additional income last year. And there was just a lot of resistance, having, mastered my skill in the previous role I was in. And it really forced me to look at a lot of the unhealed parts of myself, and, being willing to be vulnerable and admit what I was struggling with, which I actually did a lot with my manager. I would try to figure out, what I was struggling with and bring it up so that we could work through certain things. And that is how you grow, right? So being in the downward spiral isn't always a bad thing. Really taking a look at what you can heal while you are in the downward spiral is actually going to make you, come out of it even better than you would have thought. Okay, so there is a lot of purpose and intention of being in that spot. And so when you can actually realize that and use that to your advantage, then you're going to feel better, essentially. So I hope that was helpful. Eventually, again, now I feel like I'm in a much, much better place. If you didn't see my Cambo video, I feel like that really helped as well, kind of shifting out of that. I mean, I did some healing before that. Of course, you always want to do what you can before additional tools. So I have a video about Cambo if you want to watch that, learn about what that is. But I know that really positively helped me as well. It helped, I would say, with healing my body personally, just entertainment purposes. I'm not giving any medical advice, but I have noticed it has healed me on a level that I didn't expect, and it is allowing me to sustain the work of doing that deep healing and that growth in pursuing my path of purpose. So you can go ahead and watch that video if you would like. I would love to hear any comments below. If this does trigger you, I apologize. I know it can trigger a lot of people when we're going through that downward spiral and people are talking about being over here. It can feel really triggering. Sometimes feeling triggered is a good thing because it tells us what's possible and where our work is. So just know that. But sending love if you are in this downward spiral right now, because I know it's not fun. And just know it won't last forever. Okay, so sending so much love. Thank you so much for watching today. And I do have a 3-day workshop for pursuing peace and purpose for empaths and highly sensitives. It's about an hour a day in the evening. So if you work full time, it's not an all day thing. You'll also get the replay if you can't make it live. So I highly recommend registering. I always have sessions running. So just look in the description below and you will be able to register for free. Okay. All right. Well, have a beautiful week. Love and care. Bye.